So here we are, and it's almost Independence Day. Very interesting time. Again, when you reflect back and think that a stone's throw historically, America didn't exist. I mean, a couple hundred years, that's nothing in historical terms. But yet, America has become the dominant power in the world for a good amount of time now. Over a century, we've been the dominant power, especially post World War II. But you look back and you think, there's so many in this community and other communities across the board that, talk about America, regardless of politics, the waning days of America, or America this or America that. But what you really don't realize at times is that America, honestly, is just as strong as it's ever been. I mean, realistically, the influence that America has on the world, for better or for worse, and again, that's the key, is that it doesn't, just because America has a lot of influence, doesn't mean that it's a good thing. There's plenty of negative that we export elsewhere. But that being the case, what is it to be an American? I mean, you look back, think about the divides that we have in our society now. A lot of those same divides we've been fighting for for the last 300 years. You know what I mean? It's the same battle over and over and over. And each generation, has the same battle. It is what it is. But it always feels like it's something different. It always feels like, no, this time it's more important. Think about it right now in context. Think about the divides that we have. And think about, if you had to put it into, American independence terms, which side would be the Tories? Which side would be the rebellious Americans? I mean, a case can be made for either side. And it's really interesting. Like, it's very interesting to think about, what it is to be American. I think at times the big thing for me is that, we are strong because there are so many differences within America. If it was a very homogenous society, I think actually that's probably a lot easier to tear apart than what a lot of people would think, which would be a very diverse society with a lot of different perspectives. Because the big thing, when you look back, historically, for example, very recent, historically speaking, look at 9/11. 9/11, for better or for worse, tragedy brought everyone together. And there are a lot of things that, post 9/11 that were actually not good. The Patriot Act, aptly named the Patriot Act. Things like that, and loss of freedom, individual freedoms that people, that we've all kind of suffered. But it is what it is as far as how that makes America strong. Post 9/11, I mean, we've invaded, Iraq and Afghanistan, and, we have, exerted militarily our presence abroad. Does that make us stronger as a nation? I don't know. A case can be made for either side. Now, with regard to what happened in Iraq, I mean, we all know that there was definitely some subterfuge there as far as the rationale for going into Iraq. But even so, I mean, did that make us stronger in the long run? I don't know. Only history is going to show. I mean, we haven't had a major terrorist event, knock on wood, since then. So is the loss of freedom, the price of safety? I don't know. But again, think of that in terms of like where we came from British rule, being subjects of the king, having that protection, so to speak, but at the same time having the iron fist. Are we making the transition back to that type of environment? It's an interesting quandary. I mean, think about it. The more liberty you have, the more insecurity you have. It's just a fact. Because, the price of that liberty is, as with anything, there's pros and cons. There are many in our society who would gladly give up liberty for, safety, security, stability. It's a very, something that really gets lost, I think, on our current populace. That there was a price that's been constantly paid by, people, by not just the military, but just American citizens, period. You don't have to be in the military to have served the country. There are plenty of other ways that you can serve this nation and make it better. And that's also, I mean, that's a very strong concept when you think about it. It's not just about conquering people or protection with a weapon or things like that. There are a lot of people who give their life of service to this nation. I think with, with regard to Independence Day, there's just so many different things to contemplate. One of the funny things that I heard recently was that the southern accent of people from the South is actually the remnants of the British accent that's just been slowly changed over time. But that slow drawl is the last remnants of the British accent. And I was like, I never thought of it like that. But I was watching this thing and they were explaining why that happened, and where the people who really had those strong accents settled. And it made perfect sense. I was like, wow, I never would have thought of it. But you ask anybody like about a southern accent and they would say that that's like a uniquely American thing, right? The South, that's that's the drawl of the South. Interesting. I love these rambles about things like American independence. Again, mainly because there are so many like anti what it is to be American thoughts that prevail right now. You know what I mean? Like, for whatever reason, it's very difficult to quantify what it is to be an American. People say like, oh, you have to stand for the flag, or you have to do this, or you have to do that. But I mean, is that really liberty, or is that just respecting the institution? Yet the same people who say oh, stand for the flag, or honor the flag, or don't disrespect the flag, will say things about the government or this or that. And the reality is that, again, at the end of the day, the concept of being American is you should be able to do all those things. You should be able to do pretty much whatever you want, within reason. Obviously, we have laws and things like that, but your views are protected, right? And as are the views of others. And that's what makes this nation so different, on the world stage. Because it's not always allowed everywhere that you can, freely express your opinions. Now, there are plenty of people here who will say that, oh, you can't. America doesn't let you express your opinion because you'll get ostracized. And you're absolutely right. But to a much lesser extent than what it would be elsewhere. It's interesting to me. It's interesting to me to think, what it is to be an American. And what does that entail? What kind of responsibility does that entail? Does it entail any responsibility to anyone? Or is the point of being an American the fact that you can just do whatever you want and you don't owe anyone anything? I don't know. But again, with regard to the silver stacking community, I think that the great part is there is a lot of patriotism that is present in the stacking community. I think there are definitely elements there that conflate patriotism with a certain ideology, when in reality, patriotism should be just celebrating the fact that, we're not a monarchy, we're not a strongman ruled country, we're something that's completely different than, what else is out there. Does that mean that we're the best? Not necessarily. I mean, I could think of a lot of ways that I think we're the best, but I can also think of a lot of ways that, we could definitely stand to work on a few things. It's a very interesting environment, and I think that's the real point of what it is to celebrate Independence Day. America is an ever-evolving, product. It's not something that's, established and just, it is what it is. It's something that's constantly moving back and forth, ebbs and flows of different ideologies, different, things that we need to go through as a nation, as a community, to get better. And also, again, there are going to be struggles. There are going to be setbacks. There are going to be things such as what I mentioned earlier, the desire for safety and security and the willingness to give up, freedom. There are some people in the stacking community that think, freedom is a joke, that we really don't, exercise freedom here in this country. Again, I can see the merits of what they're saying. They bring up some good points. But at the end of the day, for better or for worse, I still think this is the greatest nation that we could have, ever asked for. And even though at times we do go through turmoil and trials and tribulations, that's going to be the story anywhere, And when you look at where we are now, it's never easy. But when you look back at America's history, it never has been.